Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome back to another LEGO Dreamzzz Summer 2024 review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Neverwitch's Nightmare Creatures, a smaller scale Raven build that can also be transformed into an evil Doom Blob battle mech, a big scaled wolf, and so many other creations, which is a really cool concept for a LEGO Dream set. Let's take a look right now. Here is set number 71483, the Neverwitch's Nightmare Creatures. It retails for $45 or 45 euros and comes with 457 pieces, putting it at around 9.8 cents price per part ratio. It comes with 5 minifigures, Mateo being the only figure on the side of the heroes, as well as the main villain of the season, the Neverwitch, plus 3 of the evil clones she has created of the main cast. We have Mad Teo, the evil version of Mateo, Dogan, the evil version of Logan, and Doey, the evil version of Zoe. All 4 of the villains are specially detailed for this particular wave with brand new outfits, as well as Mateo with a new outfit for this wave as well. This set is unlike most of the other LEGO Dream sets, because while the main build is this large-scaled Raven that you can build for the Neverwitch, that is just one of the many nightmare creatures that you can make with the set itself. We're going to start off by taking a look at the instructions to investigate some of the alternate builds here, and you can see it's actually a pretty thick instruction booklet for what it is, and well, that's why it's color-coded to actually have you build different things with it. You start off by building just the base cauldron, and you really just expand from there. Unlike many of the other Dream sets, this has so many different potentials and possibilities for rebuild that the only thing that stays intact is the cauldron, and then you can build 3 wildly different creatures utilizing the parts they give you. Either you can make the Raven, which is kind of like the A model for the build, or you can make a mech for Doom Blob, the evil version of Z Blob, as well as a smaller scale wolf, or you can make a larger scale wolf. This is actually quite an oddity, because most of these creatures have already appeared in the TV show. The Doom Blob mech making an appearance in the final episode of Season 2 Part 1, and the wolf being present from the Neverwitch's early appearances, even going back to Season 1, making the main focus point of the set arguably not as important as the B and C builds. However, I did want to focus the review on the main build, so we're just going to briefly take a look at some of the other builds you can get here. As per all of the other LEGO Dream sets, it has some phenomenal artwork in the instruction manuals that really tell a story of what you're about to build. Here you can see what the Doom Blob mech looks like. It is basically a very similar version of the Z Blob mech set that we got, except of course it is in evil colors, and he does actually have wings that can be mounted on the back, built very similarly to the actual wings that we get for the Raven, which makes sense because it's using many of the same pieces. The other build that you can get with the mech, if you choose, is a smaller scale version of the dog, which is a super simple build. It's just utilizing the extra pieces, but it actually is pretty scaled accurately compared to the version in the show, and it even has waist articulation, which is quite nice. The final build that you can put together is a larger scale version of the wolf, which you can see in the artwork right here, and as you can see, a lot of the feathers from the Raven are used as spikes on the tail, as well as spikes on the back here, and once more, it is a very different style of build and creature compared to the original one. Now, if this was a normal LEGO review of this kind, I probably would have just purchased 3 copies of the set and showcased all the alternate builds at once or something like this. However, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this has been provided to me early by LEGO and the set doesn't release until August, so as of right now, I just will be showcasing the main build because it does require quite a number of other pieces and alternate types of building structures to be able to showcase the rest of the models, and I basically have had 1 day to build and review all of these, but maybe in the future, if there is interest, I'll probably be picking up more copies of the set, at the very least to build the Doom Blob mech, because I really do want to build that. Speaking of the characters, we're going to start off with the Doom Blob here. This is a larger version of the Z Blob dome that we got for the mech, and obviously it is printed with the Doom Blob eyes, which are very nice to get, and definitely is something that will look really good on the mech itself. Mateo here is sporting a brand new outfit for this season, and he is easily the most detailed character that we've gotten for LEGO Dreamzzz so far. He has not only dual molded legs, but he also has printing on the side of the legs showcasing his unique shoes, a brand new mold for his jacket here, which is a really nice mold. I like how it adds some depth to the minifigure, a new dual molded component for the sword hilt, which is representing the hourglass that they use, except just much more glittery and like a sword hilt, and of course he is equipped with Z-Blob as a standard Baraki Bionicle eyepiece. They've added a new streak of color to his hair with green and red being showcased, and of course he does have an alternate expression as well. This version of Mateo does not include any other accessories that you can attach to the back of the jacket, like many of the other versions of the character that we get in other sets, but as it is, I am a big fan of how they were able to pull off this character. And if you're curious what the vest looks like underneath, that's what that new element looks like, and you can see some symbols on the vest as well. This is an example of a minifigure done right. It was clearly designed with dual molding in mind, and they did manage to dual mold the legs, making it feel incredibly clean. When he's running, you can see the clear difference between the shoes as well as the actual upper part of the legs. It's just really, really well produced and a phenomenally detailed minifigure. Unfortunately, Mateo, despite basically being the evil version of this Mateo character, has the printing on the side of the legs where they clearly were meant to be dual molded, but they ran out of budget to do the dual molding, much like Izzy on this exact wave. They literally designed the character with dual molding in mind, and it is very obvious here that it was supposed to be dual molded at one point, but unfortunately they ran out of budget, so Mateo, on the other hand, has these legs that once again have that black strip showing a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal because the shades of the character are darker anyway, so it kind of blends in, but it is disappointing because clearly the characters were designed to have dual molded legs, but this one just doesn't have him. However, he does include a recolor of the new jacket element, which is pretty cool. He has the pencil weapon, which is a really nice one to have as an evil version of the actual pencil that Mateo wielded in the Season 1 sets, and if you're curious what the torso printing looks like underneath there, you can see it is basically just an evil reflection version of Mateo's normal outfit. Mateo also has an alternate expression where you can see a lightning bolt down his head here, or a smiling and laughing expression that he has on the other face, showcasing his evil intent. Dowie, on the other hand, is based off of Zoe's evil version back in Season 1. She is just equipped with a regular brown bow this time and no quiver of sorts, just basically a standard bow. She does have the newer style of dual molded armor piece though, as well as two different alternate expressions, which you can see right here. I particularly like this one. It's almost like she's scoffing or smirking at the characters. Moving onwards to the next evil clone, we have Dogen, and that is the evil version of Logan here. He also is sporting that brand new armor piece, a scythe-like hammer weapon, as well as alternate expressions to showcase him laughing evilly or just scowling menacingly. Once again, this is a character who was designed to ideally have dual molded legs, with very clearly one half the legs being black and the other half being magenta, but unfortunately, probably due to budget and the amount of dual molding they could do for these characters, they chose not to give it to him, which is a bit of a shame because Logan himself does also have dual molded legs, a similar case to Mateo having dual molded legs, but Mateo not. Finally, looking at the Never Witch here, this is the ultimate version of the Never Witch, and thankfully she does appear in 3 different sets in the wave. All 3 of them do include this recolored specialized smoke element, which was introduced in LEGO Hidden Side for the Harbinger. It also was used for Energy Nia when she turned into the ocean, as well as for Mysterio from LEGO Marvel and a number of other characters, and it's a really cool piece. I just love the way that this piece looks in the light. It really is nicely reflecting, and the black and transparent pink color scheme is super solid. Of course, the Never Witch has a supersized staff to boot, incorporating one of the brand new elements introduced for LEGO Dreamzzz in the form of these uniquely molded jars, and this one actually has Castle Nocturnia trapped inside, hinting at the finale of Season 2 Part 1. The Never Witch otherwise utilizes the same dual molded hair and crown element she had at the beginning of the year, where you can see this is one expression, and on the other expression she has a magenta colored stripe going down the side of her face. We haven't really seen that in the show yet, and I'm curious if that will actually come into play at any point. Otherwise though, it's a really nicely designed character. I do feel that having some sort of armor or maybe some sort of a cape would have been even better for the character, but she definitely feels a lot more menacing thanks to the large-scale smoke trail, and I'm really glad they were able to include that every time she appears in the sets, because otherwise I feel like the minifigure by itself feels a little underdone for the main villain, especially when a lot of the other characters, especially her minions, do have more armaments than she does. Moving on from that though, let's take a look at the two main builds of the actual set, setting aside the Doom Blob head as well. The first thing that you build is this little cauldron, and it actually does include 2 copies of the cauldron bubbling over a mysterious green flame, as well as 3 more of the mysterious jars that hold the different realms of the dream world, plus one of the new dual molded black and transparent pink ravens that they managed to do as a new mold for LEGO Dreamzzz. Very cool to see that animal. The piece that interests me the most is actually the cauldron element here. This is definitely one of the most interesting pieces to get, and it actually is a number of pieces, because if you go ahead and remove the elements here, just to showcase how this is built, this is a brand new mold they created for LEGO Dreamzzz. It's quite interesting. I can definitely see this having a lot of applications, and I'm personally very happy that they actually made it a separate half-molded thing, so you can actually get a lot more applications out of this. I can see this as a collar around a large-scale construction figure, or some sort of spaceship detailing or engine detailing. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do with a piece like this. Almost looks like an underwater diver's helmet as well. I'd love to see a mock like that, and I just like that you can do so many different things with it. Of course, they've managed to integrate the ratchet click hinges into the piece in the middle of the cauldron itself, which allows you to be able to actually use the cauldron to attach limbs onto it and do all sorts of interesting stuff with the posing. This little piece of nightmare landscape or scenery is connected by single 1x2 Technic pins and connector points, which implies that this could be attached to a larger build, although unfortunately there is no larger build for the Never Witch so far. I don't know if they're ever going to expand on the system, because it does feel like this was made to be separated and then maybe attached onto other things, but as of right now, it's just the only one in this little miniature module, so maybe I was expecting a little bit too much, like the Monkey Kid sets are all modular within each other, but it is a nice hint if they do intend to make some semi-modular LEGO Dreamzzz buildings. Moving on from that though, let's take a look at the main build of the set, which is one of the creatures. This is the Raven. Now, this is a pretty interesting one, because we already are getting a Raven in this wave, a much larger one, the Midnight Raven, so this does end up feeling almost a little bit like a duplicate, like you didn't necessarily need to have this. However, I do actually commend them offering the Raven at a smaller price point, because Ravens are a big part of the villain motif for this particular season, and it would be unfortunate if there was only one single Raven build that was locked behind a pretty expensive price. That way, at a lower price, at least in theory, kids who do want to have the Never Witch's Raven can have it as a smaller alternative, or people who have both sets can choose to turn this into something else, like the Doom Blob mech. The Raven actually incorporates 2 unique printed pieces for the eyes. They're just printed cheese slope elements, which are pretty nice to see. I'm sure those will be reused across different characters here and there, because they did create 2 new prints for the Raven, and they didn't even need to create 2, so that is quite cool to see. Of course, the head itself is mounted on mixel joints, and the legs are surprisingly quite posable, thanks to the slightly newer gigantic macaroni pieces, which they introduced for LEGO Dreamzzz in this brand new system here. You can see that you actually can bend these elements back and forth, you can rotate them on the friction Technic pin, and you can move the feet on mixel joints or mini ball joints, as well as each of the individual claws, making this one of the most fun ones to pose around. Of course, the body itself is built around a second copy of the cauldron piece, which ties into the Never Witch theming, which I always think is a good thing, and she has gotten a recolor of the LEGO Dreamzzz flame exhaust leaf element, which typically I'm not the biggest fan of, but in this particular application, I actually really like the way it was done, because it kind of looks like there are feathers embedded into it, which is totally perfect for a build like this. You can position the back feathers back and forth, as well as move it up and down just ever so slightly, so it's always good to get a bit of extra articulation. The throne can also be articulated back and forth, although of course you do have to remove the Never Witch from her smoke trails to be able to mount her on the throne itself, and otherwise, this is the amount of posability that you can get with the Raven itself. Of course, you can flap the wings up and down, and thanks to the usage of the ratchet joints, you can also rotate them back and forth, so you can have it be in all sorts of different positions, and even beyond that, you can even wiggle the feathers back and forth as well. So this is just a very posable type of creature, and I really do like the amount of effort they put into actually making this fully posable as a Raven. Now, moving onwards from that, let's zoom out and take a look at the set as a whole. Now again, this set retails for $45 US. And I know that if you look at the price per part ratio, it doesn't seem that bad. It has 457 pieces, it has 5 minifigures, some very detailed minifigures. On paper, this feels like it should be good value, and I am getting the same sentiment with this one that I am getting with a lot of the LEGO Dream sets, where on paper they seem like really good value, but then actually in practice, I zoom out and I'm sitting down and I don't feel like, to be completely honest, I don't feel like this is worth $45. I'm just really not seeing it. The Raven isn't big or substantial enough to actually warrant that price tag, and yes, there are many pieces left over to build the alternate builds, but that has come at the compromise of increasing the price. And to be honest, given that there is a larger Raven in the wave that isn't even that much more expensive, it's about double the price, and it's not like this was like a $20 Raven where it would totally make sense to do a smaller one and a bigger one, or that other Raven is not like $200. They're within the same realm of reasonability that I do have to wonder why this was the main focus point of the set. Although I presume that if they made the Doomblob mech the main focus, which is presumably a little bit more marketable, then it would have appeared even smaller compared to what you actually get, and this is easily the largest thing that you can build out of the 3 options. So how would I have changed this? Well, to be completely honest, I don't think you necessarily needed this build. The side build is fairly okay. I think it is interesting. I like the color scheme, I like the location style of build, but it does take up a lot of pieces, and those pieces aren't really even used in the alternate models. In fact, you build it separately from the alternate models, so it's not like they were just trying to include pieces to make up for the extra models. If you were to remove this and maybe even remove like 1 or 2 of the figures, I could totally see them selling this for closer to $30, which I think would be a pretty good price for something that's just the Raven and maybe the Never Witch and maybe just Mateo to fight her. Just make it 2 minifigures, 25 bucks, have just the creature, at best like 30, 25, something around that range. Even 35 would be pushing it a little bit. But 45, I'm honestly just not really seeing the value here. I'm used to $50 sets feeling a lot more substantial, and I know that by price per part, maybe this is fair, and maybe I'm just complaining for no real sake of complaining, but just to me, I'm just not necessarily sure I'm getting the maximum amount of value I could be getting with a set like this. That being said, I do like the build, and that is kind of the same thing to say about many of the Dream sets. I actually do like a lot of the builds. It's just the price that feels like you could be getting a little bit more for what you're supposedly supposed to be paying. That's all I have to say about this one, but hope you enjoyed our look at the Never Witch's Nightmare Creatures. Certainly a really fun and interesting concept for a LEGO set to be rebuilt in 2 different ways, kind of like the Creator 3-in-1 sets with an action-adventure twist, and I hope that LEGO will continue to experiment more with original themes and do stuff like this, just maybe not at this price. And with that, we have summed up our individual review of this LEGO Dream set. Let me know in the comments what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe to the official Duck Bricks YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.